Part 18. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 177. Sanji looked at Point 2 and said, "You made me discover something during the battle just now." "What?" 2 asked. "That is, once your imitated body starts to attack, then you must quickly change back to your original form," Sanji said sharply. When the secret was discovered, Point 2 looked very unhappy, but remained silent. "So that's what happened. You discovered it? Your observation skills are pretty good," Point 2 said. "In fact, it's not just like that. When your body changes, you need your right hand to touch your face, and when you change back, you need your left hand to touch your face," Sanji continued. After hearing this, Point 2's face became even uglier. "Damn it, you saw it all. You found out the secret of the slave family. I'm really ashamed," Point 2 said angrily. Now Point 2's whole body was trembling with anger. The secret of imitation that he was proud of was seen through. "Okay, Shemale. Without your imitation ability, don't even think about defeating me," Sanji finally said this time, lighting a cigarette. Hearing this, Point 2 became violent. "Okay, curly eyebrow boy. Without imitation, I can beat you to pieces." 2 was so angry that he looked like a swan. Point 2 took up his posture again and made a powerful fighting posture. "Young boy with curly eyebrows, you should be lucky if you don't know the real power of New Family's Shemale boxing skills. Because if you see them, it's time for you to go to the West," Point 2 winked and said with pride. Sanji's face was calm. Of course, he also understood that the opponent in front of him was not easy to deal with. He could clearly feel during the fight just now that Point 2 did not use his full strength. I saw Point 2 take off the 2 swan-like decorations on the back of the coat behind him. 2 very long swan heads and necks were removed. Then Point 2 put a swan decoration on the top of his 2 ballet shoes. "First of all, let me explain, the one on my right foot is female, and the one on my left foot is male," Point 2 said. Sanji frowned and said, "Who cares?" Point 2 The feet move, and the 2 swan-like decorations installed also move together, as if they are real living swans. "Now, let you see the truly powerful human-demon boxing technique." 2 roared. Then Point 2's body rushed over very flexibly. Sanji stabilized his whole body, and the opponent's foot kicked towards him. Point 2's right leg kicked towards his chest. Sanji's left leg flew up suddenly to block the opponent's attack. There was a violent sound, and Sanji's left leg blocked Point 2's right leg. But something surprising happened. Point 2 The swan-like decoration on his right leg suddenly stabbed Sanji's chest with its mouth. Sanji dodged instinctively, but the opponent was very flexible and stabbed Sanji on the left side of his chest. Some flesh was cut open. Sanji jerked back. The mouth of the swan ornament just now was as sharp as many swords made of fine steel. "Why is this happening?" Sanji glanced at his own wounds and then looked at Point 2. "This is the true ability of the slave family. Don't underestimate these 2 decorations. Their mouths are as hard as steel. And the attack of the slave family can be said to be twice as powerful." 2 said proudly. Sanji looked at Point 2, gritted his teeth and said, "Damn it." Point 2 charges again, this time he continues to use kicks. "Make a hole in you." Point 2's right foot kicked over, and the swan decoration on it stretched directly forward this time. The mouth of the decoration was extremely sharp, and at the same time it was mixed with astonishing speed. What's even more surprising is that the swan's neck can actually be extended. Originally, the swan decoration was only 1 meter in length, but now it has reached 3 meters in length, plus Point 2 the length of its legs. Now the attack length of the swan's mouth has reached more than 4 meters in one fell swoop. Sanji dodged desperately, and a hole the size of a swan's head was pierced fiercely on the ground he avoided. From the outside, it looks like a shotgun crater, and the penetration is even worse. Point 2 This attack failed, and he pulled his feet back to look at Sanji. What a pity. But it also allows you to fully experience the capabilities of the slave family. This kind of swan can freely expand and contract, and its mouth is extremely sharp. It can even open it. Coupled with the slave family's attack ability, it is almost as soft as a stick. Like a spear. Point 2 said enchantingly. Point 2's character is like this. Once he has an advantage, he will be happy. If he is beaten or at a disadvantage, he will be very irritable. Sanji looked at the cave on the ground. His opponent just kicked him normally. But this power is enough to penetrate hard masonry. Even steel has the potential to be pierced. If Point 2 uses that kind of powerful continuous attack technique, it will be extremely dangerous. Okay, let's continue. Sanji threw away the cigarette butt from his mouth and stretched his ankles. Point 2 looked at this tough man who refused to admit defeat, with a hint of admiration between his eyebrows. Okay, if you have the guts, I will kill you completely. Point 2 Then the whole person jumped into the air and then rolled. Shemale boxing. Gorgeous swan dance. Point 2 While spinning, he kicked Sanji continuously. Moreover, the swan's mouth above the kicking feet is sticking out. It was really like countless spears stabbing out in succession. Sanji violently kicked up a broken masonry on the ground, and the masonry blocked many attacks. But after withstanding more than 10 attacks, it was shattered by holes and countless cracks made by the opponent. Countless gravel flew across, and the swan's beak on Point 2's feet also stabbed at it. Sanji tried his best to dodge, but was stabbed twice in the abdomen and left shoulder. Sanji screamed for a while and rolled out. Point 2 Although the attack was successful, it was unable to continue the combo in mid-air and finally fell down. Point 2 stood on the ground like a ballet dancer and looked at Sanji again. Hey, it can't be so useless. Although the new family knows that they are strong, you can't help but beat me. Point 2 said. Of course not. Sanji struggled to get up, even though his body was bleeding. Under the scorching sun, the soaked suit was quickly dried again, and the body was hot for a while. Wai Wei, who was watching the battle from a distance, was watching the battle all the time, and she was terrified. After Sanji was hit just now, she was extremely anxious. Sanji, we must win. All Wai Wei could do now was pray silently. Although she knew how powerful Point 2 was, she didn't expect it to be so powerful. Especially the use of swan decorations, which is a secret that the senior agents in the Baroque studio probably don't know. However, facing the powerful Sanji, Point 2 was still used. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 178. Sanji rushed towards Point 2 again, this time both in speed and swiftness. It was far 10 times faster than before. Superlative ground meat. Sanji jumped into the air, kicking out intensive attacks with both legs. Even Point 2 was attacked and could only parry. At this time, Sanji is in mid-air, attacking the Point 2 below. Although Point 2 uses both hands and feet, the swan mouth on the feet does not play much role in this situation. You are really not afraid of death. Point 2 The whole person quickly stood upside down, put his hands on the ground, and started attacking with both feet. In this case, Sanji immediately stopped the attack. At the same time, he quickly stood upside down. Banquet table and kicking package. Sanji's feet pointed upward and started a degree roundhouse kick. Under such a powerful attack, Point 2 can only make a draw even if his feet have swan mouths. In some cases, Point 2 has certain advantages. But in this case, Sanji was able to concentrate on using the power of his feet. Sanji and Point 2 fought fiercely with their feet. Point 2 If you look at the kicking of the feet alone, it is actually not as strong as Sanji. But the swan decorations on his feet make up for this, and he can completely compete with Sanji and even have a slight advantage in flexibility. Therefore, in the fierce battle, 2 also pay attention to looking for opportunities. Point 2 quickly touched his face with his right hand. Quickly his face transformed into that of a hot blonde. Honey, don't hit me. Point 2's voice has also changed into that kind of beautiful voice. Sanji's expression didn't change, but he quickly returned to his feet. Naturally, he would not attack an opponent who had turned into a beautiful woman. Well, beauty, the left side of your cheek seems dirty, Sanji said. Point 2 unconsciously touched his face with his left hand. In an instant he changed back to his original appearance. Just when he suddenly realized something was wrong, Sanji's feet were already kicking towards his upside-down head. Kick against etiquette. Sanji's left leg was straight at 2 degrees and kicked the away. This blow is enough to kick the giant beast into the air. Point 2 flew into the air and now regrets it. There was a big swelling on the head. How could I make such a mistake? Point 2 said with tears streaming down his face. But it's not over yet. Sanji below found another brick with the height of one person. This is the best football ever. Sanji kicked the brick away and flew towards Point 2, which was still in the sky. Point 2 before it fell in the sky, he saw a huge brick flying towards him. Oh my god, the slave family is going to. Point 2 struggled desperately, but there was no foothold in the sky, and he couldn't use all his kung fu, so he could only keep struggling. With a final loud noise, Point 2 was hit by a huge brick, and the whole person flew farther away together with the brick. It's best to fall into a nearby building, and there was a sound for a while. Sanji looked at the sky and pulled the tie around his neck. It's really tiring. His weapon is really evil, it almost killed me, Sanji gasped. Wai Wei, who successfully witnessed Sanji's victory in the distance, was very happy and hurried towards Sanji. Sanji, we won. Vivi yelled at Sanji. Wai Wei rushed to the front of Sanji and looked at Sanji very caringly. Sanji turned around and looked at Wai Wei. Although he was covered with scars, dust, and dried blood, but that face is still full of the unyielding spirit of a man. Wai Wei, we won, Sanji said. You are amazing, you are the most powerful person I have ever seen, Wai Wei said admiringly. Sanji was praised and was excited for a while. He said with a smile on his face, really, it is a great honor for me to be able to protect the princess as a knight. Ah. Sanji was in pain for a while from the puncture wounds on his abdomen and left shoulder. Wai Wei saw Sanji's wound and said quickly, Sanji, quickly find a shady place to sit down. I will bandage your wound. Really? It's an honor. Ha. With the support of Wai Wei, Sanji finally arrived at a nearby building. Wai Wei also had some emergency medicine with her to treat wounds. After Sanji applied the medicine, she wrapped some bandages around his wound. It's finally over. Just in time to finish treating your wounds, Wai Wei said after finishing. Sanji was sitting on the ground now, lighting a new cigarette. After taking a deep breath, I felt much better than before. Vivi, I didn't expect you to be able to heal, Sanji said. No, I just met the imperial doctor in Alabastus Palace before, and I asked him to teach me some simple medical knowledge. After all, if I go out, I need to be prepared. These emergency medicines and bandages are what I asked Chopper. Yes. I didn't expect it to come in handy, Wai Wei said. So that's how it is, Sanji said. But Sanji looked around and suddenly said, by the way, where are Nami and the others? At this moment, suddenly another voice came from outside the old building. Hey, sure enough you are here. I've had a hard time looking for it. A light girl came in, it was Nami. Behind her were the group of drum officials who had been knocked to the ground by Point 2 just now. Now the officers are all awake and following her. Wai Wei looked at Nami and the others and said, are you all okay? We all suffered some injuries. That human demon was really cruel. But after all, we are all warriors, so we can still bear it, the drum officials said. I'm fine, Nami said happily. Wai Wei looked at her with a wry smile and said, "Ah, I understand." Just now, Nami saw that the situation was not right, so she ran away immediately. Nami looked at Sanji here again, and said, "The battle just now was very tiring. I just found real water and some food. It is definitely not poisonous." Nami waved her hand, and the drum officials brought over some wooden barrels, pottery pots, and cloth bags. "Open it, there are some water, food, and fruit. I just found these after running all the way," Nami said proudly. Wai Wei looked at the water and food. On the surface she said that you have worked hard, but in her heart she understood that you ran too far for your life and found these by accident. Then Sanji, Vivi, Nami, and the drum officials all started talking. And they also know the whereabouts of Officer John. Just now Nami and the drum officers discovered the body of Officer John. Apparently, Officer John was caught by Point 2 when he went to look for water. Result: Point 2 killed him and imitated him to assassinate Wai Wei. However, now we finally defeated that annoying guy, Nami said happily. "No, not yet," Sanji said. Sanji looked at everyone and said, "I did defeat him. But he is definitely not dead. In this case, he may need to recover from his injuries for a long time before he can act again. But we must leave here as soon as possible no matter what. After all, even without Point 2, there will still be many other Baroque Studio agents lurking here. And the people incited by them still hate Princess Vivi. We must leave here as soon as possible." After a short rest, we continue action. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 179. "Yes, we need to get out of here quickly," the drum officials said. Nami also complained very much, "Yes, get out of here quickly." Nami is already very disgusted with this chaotic place of right and wrong. "Yes, we should leave as soon as possible," Wai Wei also said. Katla is now in a state of complete chaos. Moreover, the agents of Baroque Studio incited the people and soldiers here to attack the group of people. It would be bad luck to stay here any longer, it would be better to leave early. After drinking water, eating food, and resting for a while, Sanji, Nami and Vivi set off first and started to leave the city. The drum officials still needed to meet up with the drum team stationed outside the city, so they were not in a hurry to leave so soon. Sanji and the others first got 3 horses and hurriedly rode them away from here. After running all the way, the 3 of them finally rushed out of Katla and headed towards the rapeseed flowers. Just as Sanji, Wai Wei, and Nami rushed to the rape blossoms. In the western region of Alabasta, Rog, Saran, Usopp, Chopper, Luffy, and Bear led a large number of troops and began to march north. The group purchased a large amount of grain, meat, fruits, vegetables, and drinking water that is very important to life in Kingdom Newport. There are also medicines and some special supplies for desert travel. A team of 3,000 people began to march in the desert. The fleet and some of the troops in charge of the warships, as well as the officers and soldiers injured in the previous battles, remained behind in Wangguangzhanggang. Everyone was walking in the desert, and the sun was shining brightly in the sky. Heat rises from time to time on the desert ground here. Rog, Zoro, Usopp, Chopper and Luffy ride in a carriage. Bear is here, fighting and discussing various matters with everyone. Usopp opened his cloak and looked out the window. Seeing the dazzling sunlight outside and the heat rising from the desert, he quickly pulled his head back. "It's really hot," Usopp said, and at the same time he picked up a jug and poured cool water into his mouth. Chopper beside Usopp was silent, just lying in the carriage. He was originally a reindeer who grew up in the kingdom of ice and snow, but now the heat could almost make him faint. "Usopp, I wanted to," Chopper said, dying. Usopp handed the water bottle to Chopper, and the little guy put the water bottle vertically on his mouth and drank it. Mato is also bad, Usopp said. The fur on Chopper's body was very helpful in keeping out the cold, but it became a burden in this hot desert. Finally slowed down, Chopper drank the water bottle away and sat up reluctantly. Why is it so hot here? The people living here are like gods, Chopper said. Usopp stroked his head and said, well, don't you know? Captain Usopp once stayed in a desert for 10 days and 10 nights. And he still ran out of water and food. Really, although Chopper was sleepy and tired, he still showed a bit of surprise. Usopp then blatantly brags about his adventures. Roger also picked up a pot of water and poured it into his mouth at this time. It's really hot, right? It was just dry and hot in Kingdom Zingong before, but it was a hellish burning all the way north to the depths of the desert here. Luffy also kept fanning himself while drinking water, and he kept chanting words like so hot, so hot. Sauron crossed his hands in front of his chest, closed his eyes and meditated. In this swordsman's bones, there is a kind of patience that far surpasses everyone. Ver took a book to check. Here is a book with some information about Alabasta. Ver suddenly looked at Rog and said, Rog, we have reached the depths of the desert in western Alabasta. But we have encountered a big problem. What? Rog asked him. It means that the supplies we carry are not enough. I didn't expect the desert here to be so hot. So our team consumed an astonishing amount of food and water. Especially water, the rate of consumption is unbelievable. Ver was a little distressed, said. After Rog heard this, he thought for a while and said, really? Then I will find a way to solve these problems. After hearing this, Ver's face immediately flashed with joy. Really, Roger? You said you had an idea. That's great, Ver said happily. Roger took out another watch, looked at it, and said, it's almost noon now, so prepare to find a place to rest. Let everyone have dinner, and I will formally think of a solution at the same time. Ver said, yes, yes. Okay. I will give the order immediately. Afterwards, Ver used the phone bug to order all the troops to start looking for a place to rest. The team of 3,000 people quickly found a rocky area and began to set up camp there. Roger and the others also got off the carriage. But everyone is wearing cloaks. After all, the sunlight here is too strong, and if they expose their skin, they will be killed. Why is it so hot? Usopp stood on the desert with his feet, feeling as if he were standing on an oven. Chopper felt uncomfortable all over for a while, and then quickly rushed to a shady place with rocks. Sauron covered his forehead with his hand, looked at the sky and said, this sunlight is really dazzling. I want to eat, Luffy said loudly. He had drank enough water in the car just now, but he was very hungry. Roger stood on the hot desert and looked around. Surrounded by desert and rocks, there is no sign of life. Here is to find a way to get water and food. Ver stood next to Rog and asked, Rog, can you really find a way to get water and food? Of course there is no problem. I will definitely make it out, although it may be very laborious, Roger said firmly. Roger first observed the surrounding environment, and then found a desert land. It's here. Rog stood on the desert, and quickly took out a plant from his clothes. This plant is a vine. Roger buried the plants in the desert. Then he held the plant with both hands, and began to use the energy of the plant fruit in his whole body to transform the vine. The vine began to grow rapidly under the desert, and continued to grow downwards, looking for water. At the same time, the vine became as thick as an arm, and a hole was opened above the vine. Just like this, Rog was concentrating on this for about 30 minutes. All right. Suddenly Roger's face became very happy, and his efforts were finally successful. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 180. Then the spring-like groundwater gushed out from the holes in the ground made by the vines. The people around were shocked when they saw it. Really water? Everyone was happy and surprised. Usopp immediately rushed over happily, patted Rog's shoulder suddenly, and said, as expected of Rog, you can find water like this. Chopper also rushed over, pointed the water from the vine hole to his mouth, and poured a large amount of cool water down his throat. Wow, it tastes really good. But how did you get the water? Chopper asked Rog strangely after he was full. Rog had just used a lot of fruit energy and was sweating profusely, but it was quickly evaporated by the dry heat here. This is after I transformed the vine that grew in the desert area I got in Xingang Kingdom, so that it can grow underground, and the inside becomes like a pipe. Finally, I found an underground water vein and can pump it up, Rog said. It turned out to be groundwater, no wonder it's so cool. It's much better than the heated water we brought. Usopp admired the cool groundwater while drinking it. Next, Rog also took the hole above the vine from Usopp's hand, and poured the groundwater gushing from the pipe into his throat. This cool underground water is really comfortable for the whole body, which is hard to describe in words. Next, Sauron and Luffy also came over to drink the cool groundwater to their heart's content. Vance and the drum team were very happy. Now I can finally drink water as much as I want. Due to severe consumption before, everyone felt that the water was a little unable to hold on. Now, because Rog used modified plants to pump out the groundwater, the team of 3,000 people was finally able to continue moving. Ver walked to Rog's side, and looked at Rog very reverently. It's amazing, with you here. We really don't have to worry about water, Ver praised Rog. This is what should be done. Well, let everyone continue to fetch water. And you can quickly cook and rest here, Rog said. The troops commanded by Ver quickly used wooden barrels and kettles to fetch water. At the same time, they can also use up the remaining water brought over as much as they want. On this land full of rocks and sand, camping began. Usopp, Chopper, and Luffy were already a little hungry, and they were waiting for food by the cooking pot. Because the weather here is hot enough, the chefs cook the food directly on the rocks. Wow, I really want fried eggs. Usopp looked at the 5 fried eggs spread out on a rock. Due to the hot climate and sunshine, this rock is already a pot stove under a high fire, and now it can directly fry eggs. The cook who fried the eggs brought a new egg, cracked the shell, and poured the egg yolk and egg white on the rock. What followed was a sizzling sound as the eggs were quickly cooked. In addition to frying eggs, the chef also arranged slices of bread on another rock, and the rock at high temperature quickly cooked the slices of bread like an oven. Fried egg sandwich is my favorite, Usopp said. Chopper was at the side of another cook, watching this cook. The cook put a pot full of underground water on top of the rock, and the water in the pot boiled in a short while. Then the cook put some beef jerky and dried vegetable leaves in, and it quickly turned into a pot of hot soup. Ah, it smells so good. But it would be nice to have sweets, Chopper said. The cook glanced at Chopper and said, if you want something sweet, I have some candies here. But in that bag, just go and get it. There seems to be fruit candies and chocolates. That's great, thank you. Chopper quickly ran towards the cook's bag with a smile on his face. Quickly he found some sweets and started eating them. Well, it's great to be able to enjoy these delicacies in the desert. But it would be great if there was ice cream, but unfortunately that's not possible, Chopper said happily while eating the candy. Luffy is next to a cook who is grilling a large batch of salt sea fish bought from Kingdom Newport on the hot rocks here. It's delicious, I'm not polite. Luffy picked up the fish and ate it before it was cooked. Hey, it's not cooked yet. Forget it. The cook continued to grill the fish. At this time, the 3,000 troops were cooking in full swing. The food was quickly cooked, and everyone began to eat it eagerly. Rog and Ver continued to discuss the issue while eating. Roger ate a sandwich and drank broth while thinking. Now the team's water source has finally been resolved, Ver said. However, there is still a big problem, which is the food problem you mentioned before. This, I am also under pressure to solve it, Rog said. Ver looked at Rog and said, The food problem is not as serious as the water problem, but the consumption is relatively high. Please do your best to solve as much as you can. Anyway, I can also produce a lot of food, as long as it is used reasonably together with the original food. Then I will definitely be able to get through this desert, Rog said. Okay, it's all up to you, Ver said expectantly. Roger also continued to enjoy egg sandwiches, and broth, and later ate some corned beef jerky and biscuits. After the soup was full, Rog, Ver and Sauron went to a piece of sand together. Rog buried a cactus brought from Zingon Kingdom, and then began to inject fruit energy into it with both hands to transform the cactus. This cactus grew rapidly under the energy of Rog's plant fruit, and finally grew as huge as a 3-story building. What a big cactus, Chopper said in surprise. Hey, Rogue. What are you doing? Usopp said. Sweat was all over Roger's forehead, but it dried quickly. You will all know soon. Roger said with a deep breath. Then Rog injected more fruit energy into this fruit. This huge cactus blossomed and bore fruit, and then more than 10 cactus fruits as big as wooden barrels grew out of it. In this way, you can eat the fruits of these cactus. Rog obtained a high-yielding variety in the desert area in the kingdom's new port. Now through its own plant fruit ability, it can grow further and grow fruits. That's it, everyone can pick, Rog said. It turned out to be like this. We happen to have a lot of dried meat and bread, but we are almost done eating fruits and vegetables. These cactus fruits are so huge, they really are good things. Thank you, Rogver was very happy said. Before anyone else could pick them, Luffy was already drooling at the sight of these huge red cactus fruits. Wow, it's delicious. Luffy stretched out his hand, and quickly brought him over. Rog looked at Luffy, who was about to speak, and said, "Wait a minute." But Luffy had already spoken, and he howled quickly. There are many spikes on the cactus fruit. After Rog made the cactus gigantic, the spikes on the grown fruit are even more like long nails. Luffy was in severe pain for a while, and quickly jumped to the ground, rolling in the sand. Zoro and Usopp looked at him in shame. Foodies are that bad. Chopper rushed to treat Luffy. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee Er A Dream. Chapter 181. Luffy, don't move. Chopper quickly took out painkillers and anti-inflammatory drugs from his backpack to help Luffy treat him. Then, with the help of Chopper, Luffy pulled out all the spikes in his mouth, relieved the pain and inflammation, and recovered soon. But then Ver also ordered the troops to come here to pick these huge cactus fruits. Every time after picking a batch, Rog used the plant fruit ability to make the giant cactus display a new batch of giant cactus fruits again. In this way, a total of more than 200 large cactus fruits were picked. These cactus fruits are as big as wooden barrels, and the pulp inside is also sweet and sour, delicious, juicy, and nutritious. And because it is a desert fruit, it is very easy to save during desert travel. Ver was very happy. These cactus fruits, plus the remaining bread and dried meat, were enough to enable the troops to cross the long desert. Everyone continued to move forward, approaching the rainy land in the north. In the sky, there was a vulture hovering over the team, with a civet cat on the vulture's back. It was the unfortunate combination of Baroque Studio Mr. 13 and MS Friday. They paid close attention to the situation of the team below, but no one paid attention to them. After all, looking up from the ground, I thought it was just a desert vulture waiting to eat a corpse. Nothing is airtight. The Baroque studio also learned that everyone was going from Kingdom Newport to the rainy land in the north. Inside the Baroque studio headquarters in the Rainlands, inside the magnificent pyramidal building of Crocodile. Inside the hall at the top, Crocodile was chatting with MS Quan Sunday about the current situation. Crocodile sat on the sofa, exchanging information with MS Quan Sunday, who was standing in front of him. "Boss, now that Kosa has been assassinated, Katla has fallen into chaos," MS Quan Sunday said. Crocodile's sinister expression was also calm. Now that Plan G has been implemented, Alabasta has returned to chaos. For him, in order to finally seize control of Alabasta, he must make the situation even more chaotic now, so that he can win in chaos. Very well, now Alabasta is back in chaos again. They really thought they could prevent the destruction of Alabasta in this way. That's really naive. But Princess Wai has his companions to protect her, so I'm afraid it's still possible. It's really difficult to deal with, Crocodile said. Ms. Quanzhou nodded and said, yes, the plan led by Mr. Tu to eliminate Princess Wai failed. But he will continue to work hard, but I would like to ask if it is necessary to send more manpower there. This is not necessary. Just let Mr. Tu do it with all his strength. But we must kill Princess Vivi as soon as possible, Crocodile said. But there is another important piece of information. It is Princess Wai's accomplices who defeated our elite troops at the kingdom's new port. They used a large number of troops to move here. Currently, the unfortunate combination of Mr. 13 and Ms. Friday has been monitoring them, Ms. said all Sunday. Crocodile looked at her, was silent for a while and said, that group of people are really good. All the elite agents and elite troops we have sent out so far have been eliminated by them. They actually want to come here to die. But if this is the case, then the right people will be dispatched. You know who I am referring to. I understand, Ms. Quan Sunday said respectfully. Then Ms. retired all Sunday, and Crocodile was still enjoying the darkness here. Although Alabasta seems to be returning to chaos now, it is still unknown what will happen in the future and whether his conspiracy will be successful. Before all this is really realized, Crocodile dare not really relax his vigilance. Another 6 days passed, in the desert south of the Rain Land. After a long journey, Rog and Ver and their team of more than people finally arrived in the southern area of the Rain Land. I also encountered some old cities and oases on the way, but they were either sparsely populated, or were attacked by sandstorms every day. Roger was talking with Ver and others in the carriage at this time. On the table in front of him was a map of the western desert region of Alabasta, with many marks on it. It's almost here, me. After a long journey, we finally arrived at the desert in the south of the Rain Land. Here, we can continue to walk for a day to reach the Rain Land, Ver said happily. Rog was also very happy, and said, finally, we are almost here. But although we are coming, we must really meet the challenge. After all, there is a King Shichibukai lurking here. He still has a lot of people under him. That's great, but are there any swordsmen inside? Zoro said calmly. It seems like you can eat meat as much as you want, Luffy said greedily. The team consumed a lot of meat these days, and even in the desert they captured some large desert animals such as the Sandora lizard, which was not enough to eat. Another time, a group of deceptive birds pretended to be injured, all trying to deceive people. However, they were eventually discovered, and the group of deceptive birds became barbecued to satisfy everyone's appetite. But when it comes to the Rainy Land, the city deep in the northwest of Alabasta, you can get enough supplies there. Although Yudi is located in the inland area, the transportation is convenient. There is a trade route through the mountains in the north, the Sandora River in the east, and a trade route leading to King's Newport in the south. Of course, in order to deceive others, the group did not take the more convenient business route. Instead, head north on a more secluded desert route. In the Rainy Land, you can take a breath. But that was also the beginning of the real battle. Chopper said strangely, there must be candies there too. Of course, as long as there are children there, there will be candies for sale. But when you get there, you will also have to face the terrifying crocodile, Usopp said while scaring Chopper. Chopper was frightened, and Usopp immediately patted his chest again and said, "Don't worry, Captain Usopp will kill him." For a group of people, arriving in the Rainy Land is both the end of the arduous journey and the beginning of the real danger. It is necessary to fight against Crocodile, a super powerful opponent, head on. Rog looked at the map, and then at the crowd. But now there is very bad news. According to the communication between Sanji and the others, Kosa was actually assassinated. This triggered an earthquake in Alabasta. The rebel area that now dominates the southeast has fallen into a high degree of chaos. There are either internal forces of the rebel army killing each other, or some people are going to continue to attack Aruba in the north. Vivi, Sanji, and Nami are still safe. They are trying to stabilize the situation in Alabasta. But because of Baroque Studio, the chaos cannot be eliminated. So everyone, it is up to us in the end. Defeat Crocodile, Rog said firmly. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 182. To defeat Crocodile. Everyone said with high morale. As long as Crocodile is defeated, everything will be fundamentally resolved. As the team of 3,000 people continued to move north, everyone's morale improved again. In addition to the upcoming battle with the enemy, this painful desert trip is almost over. But on a huge rock in the southern desert of the Rainlands, two men were standing here watching the procession. One of them was tall and burly, and his burly body was surprisingly strong. His upper body was only covered with a small amount of clothing, hanging casually on his body. The muscles on his body are as hard as steel, and it is obvious that his body has been forged into this shape after many battles under many harsh conditions. His head was shaved bald, giving him the air of an ascetic. But the most eye-catching thing is the big character carved on his chest. At first glance, this strong man looks like a powerful monk. Beside him was a beautiful woman with a voluptuous figure and extremely slender figure. The beauty has dark blue fluffy hair and a very sexy face, which has not been roughened by the desert climate here in the slightest. Those red lips full of charm are opened from time to time, and he puts the pipe into his mouth to take a puff. Her body is also relatively revealing, with very little clothing on her chest and abdomen, but her limbs and legs are tightly dressed. The burly bald man spoke and said, "Hey, MS2 Fingers. Now our prey is finally here. Yes, there are quite a lot of them. But our people are enough to deal with them. Of course, let me ask, if it weren't for me and those elite troops, could you kill them all by yourself?" Mr. One he took a puff from his pipe and said. These two people are the top senior agents in Baroque Studio, Mr. One and MS2 Fingers. In terms of loyalty and ability, this pairing is the most powerful. However, in order to complete the task perfectly, MS also dispatched elite troops from the Baroque Studio to participate in the battle on Sunday. These elite troops, with two people as the core, destroyed Rog and Ver team. Mr. One continued to watch the team, was silent for a while and said, "I think I can do it, but the most important thing is, even if I can defeat thousands of people, I can't stop some of them from escaping. After all, I can do it alone. No matter how invincible we are, we cannot surround these enemies." MS smiled charmingly with both hands and said, "You are really a strong-willed guy. Okay, let's kill them together later." Mr. One continued to observe and said, "Now they have reached the predetermined area. They can order the elite troops in ambush to shrink the encirclement." Okay, MS put away the pipe with both hands, then took out a phone and started communicating. In the rainy desert ahead, Baroque Studio deployed a large number of elite troops. It is specially used to surround the team of Rog and Ver who are coming. At this time, the team of 3,000 people continued to march north, but they did not know that 4 enemy armies were surrounding them. Although it is said that this is a desert, it is also uneven. Many places are high and low, so the view is limited. A large number of officers and soldiers of the Drum Kingdom drove carriages and rode on horses. But some officers and soldiers at the front noticed something in front of them. Because the sand is soft, it effectively eliminates the sound. Is something approaching? An officer looked forward doubtfully. I saw a huge, 10-meter-long, scorpion suddenly appeared in front of me. What is this? The officers and soldiers said in shock. But they were then ready to take out their weapons against the scorpion. After all, they also saw some huge desert creatures such as the Santoro lizard in the desert before, so they reacted quickly after being initially surprised by this huge scorpion. However, more giant scorpions also appeared next. Then a total of 30 huge scorpions appeared in front. These huge scorpions really frightened the officers and soldiers a little. But what's even more weird is that there are actually people on the backs of these giant scorpions. Behind the giant scorpions is a group of people, who are controlling these giant scorpions like animals. What's even more surprising is that the people who drive them have cannons and machine guns installed on the backs of these giant scorpions. In addition to the front, about huge scorpions appeared on the left, right, and rear of the magnetic drum army. A total of more than 100 giant scorpions surrounded the team from the front, back, left and right. We were attacked. Ready to fight. The officers and soldiers of the magnetic drum kingdom hurriedly stopped and marched, and quickly prepared their guns and cannons for battle. But it was too late. The cannons installed on the backs of these huge scorpions fired first. There was a burst of cannon sound, and swarms of shells were fired from the cannon on the back of the giant scorpion and flew towards the magnetic drum army. There was a violent explosion, and the bodies of the officers and soldiers of the drum kingdom, as well as carriages and horses, as well as ordnance and supplies, flew across. The desert was soon covered with human remains, broken weapons and vehicle wreckage, as well as blood. These giant scorpions are equipped with cannons and machine guns on their backs, making them a powerful desert armored force. Moreover, it has extremely high firepower and mobility, and immediately trapped the strong Sigo army. Rog, Sauron, and Ver, who were in the carriage, were all shocked by the attack. They hurried out of the carriage. What's going on? This is. Several people looked around in surprise. Their own large army was besieged by a group of huge scorpions coming from all directions. There are actually people and cannons on the backs of these scorpions. The giant scorpions continuously bombarded the surrounded magnetic drum army. Drum country troops suffered heavy casualties. The opponent is constantly shrinking the encirclement. Oh my god, what a huge scorpion! Usopp shouted in horror. It's terrible! Chopper cried and hugged Usopp's thigh tightly. Luffy shouted in surprise, Scorpion! Ver had a look of horror on his face. He saw the miserable situation on his side and said, I'm afraid these are. Sauron held the handle of the knife at his waist and said, our enemy. Rog clenched his fists and said, Baroque Studio. Rog looked around, and his troops were completely in chaos. Now that it has suffered a serious preemptive strike, it is completely passive. However, there are still some drum soldiers who rush to use the remaining weapons to fight back. Machine guns and some cannons fired at those giant scorpions. Rog looked at Sauron and said, okay, it's time to fight. No problem. Zoro had already drawn out 2 katana swords. Luffy also stretched out his hands and prepared to fight. Rog looked at Ver again, and said, hurry up and prepare to stabilize your position, or there will be more people who will not die. And Usopp and Chopper, please. After hearing this, Ver said, okay, leave it to me. Rog then ran towards the giant scorpions, approaching them. These huge scorpion shells actually have the logo of the Baroque Studio. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee Er A Dream. Chapter 183. Sure enough, the Baroque Studio made these evil weapons, Rog said. The person on the back of the giant scorpion closest to Rog can already be seen clearly. There are 4 people in total, one of whom is responsible for driving the giant scorpion. 2 men man the cannon and 1 man man the machine gun. These Baroque Studio agents control giant scorpions and the weapons on their backs, just like a group of tanks, able to maneuver in the desert and suppress their opponents with heavy firepower. Seeing Rog approaching, The Baroque studio agent on the back of the huge scorpion immediately pointed the machine gun at Rog. A burst of bullets came, and Roger quickly hid behind the wreckage of a wrecked carriage. The enemy's firepower is really good, and the mobility is very high. Roger took a pumpkin out of his clothes. This pumpkin also has a bunch of vines on it. Okay, it's time for you to play your role. Rog concentrated the plant fruit energy in his body with both hands and injected it into the pumpkin. Accompanied by the energy of the huge plant fruit, the pumpkin began to grow rapidly on the ground. This pumpkin had actually been modified by Rog a long time ago, but now the energy of the fruit was further enhanced, making it grow rapidly. The pumpkin eventually became 15 meters wide and 2 stories high. And in front is a huge face, like a huge Halloween monster. The vines that connected the pumpkins also grew more rapidly. They were as thick as a human thigh, and they could actually support the pumpkins while walking in the desert like spider legs. This weapon has finally come in handy. It's up to you. Pumpkin Beast. Rog jumped on top of the Pumpkin Beast and began to control this huge guy like a house. After Rog used the giant pumpkin, everyone present looked at Rog in shock. Whether it is the troops of the Drum Kingdom or the agents of the Baroque workshop. Usopp and Chopper also saw the weapons used by Rog. My god, it's Rog. He used this huge monster, Usopp said in surprise. So handsome, Chopper said, even more surprised. Rog stood on top of the giant pumpkin beast, driving the giant beast under his feet. The agents of the Baroque studio were all stunned. Rog suddenly used this powerful weapon, leaving them defenseless. What is this? Giant pumpkin. Why is there a scary Halloween-like face on the pumpkin? It's as big as a villa. Rog stood on top of the giant pumpkin and looked at the agents of the Baroque studio who were driving the giant scorpion. Since you can control the big guy, so can I, Rog said, full of fighting will. However, the agents of the Baroque studio quickly recovered and began to attack the giant pumpkin. Don't be afraid of this monster, attack with all your strength. First, 5 huge scorpions rushed towards the giant pumpkin, and the cannons on the backs of these scorpions began to fire. One shell after another hit the giant pumpkin, and Rog felt a violent tremor under his feet. However, the gunpowder smoke and flames dissipated, but there were only some small cracks on the hard skin of the giant pumpkin, which did not cause much damage. Okay, it's time for us to fight back. Roger commanded the giant pumpkin. There was a terrifying ghost-like sound from the pumpkin monster's mouth, and its thick vines immediately entangled a huge scorpion, and the 4 Baroque studio agents on the back of the scorpion were thrown off. The huge scorpion struggled violently, but the vines of the giant pumpkin were getting tighter and tighter. Then there was a scream of the scorpion. The body and head of this huge scorpion were crushed abruptly, and the body tissue and juice inside were splashed all over the desert. Roger took a look and felt disgusted, but he also understood that this giant pumpkin monster was even more powerful than he imagined. Well done, keep killing them, Rog said loudly. The giant pumpkin roared for a while, and then the giant vine threw away the scorpion remains. These huge vines hold the pumpkin giant and move on. The agents of the Baroque studio also felt that their opponents were terrifying, and it was the first time they had seen such a huge plant capable of fighting. What a scary monster! We need to attack from a distance. The remaining 4 huge scorpions quickly retreated, and then opened fire with the cannons on their backs. The shells and bullets hit the giant pumpkin's body, but they couldn't cause too much damage. Rog saw the huge scorpions pulling away. These huge scorpions actually far surpassed the pumpkin behemoth in terms of speed and maneuverability. Okay, giant pumpkin. Now I need your long-range attack. Use the sand here to spit out a powerful storm. Roger continued to give orders to the pumpkin monster. Woo! There was a ghostly roar in the mouth of the giant pumpkin monster. This huge monster opened its huge mouth like a Halloween ghost. This mouth is big enough to chew a carriage into pieces in one bite. Then a large amount of sand was sucked in. After the pumpkin giant sucked enough sand, it pointed its mouth in the direction of the four giant scorpions. Boom! A huge desert storm spit out from the mouth of the giant pumpkin and rushed towards the four giant scorpions. The Baroque studio agents on the backs of the four huge scorpions looked at the oncoming desert storm in horror for a while, and they were overturned together with the huge scorpions below. Here you go. Rog, standing on the back of the giant pumpkin, clenched his fists and said happily. Under Rog's command, the giant pumpkin rushed towards the four overturned giant scorpions. Some of the agents of the Baroque studio just got up when they saw the giant pumpkin rushing towards them. This time, the giant pumpkin directly lifted a huge scorpion and stuffed it into its huge mouth. Then there was a burst of screams from the scorpion, and the huge scorpion was chewed by the giant pumpkin. "Oh my God, the pumpkin eats the scorpion," the Baroque studio agents shouted in horror. Rog, who was standing on the back of the giant pumpkin monster, also felt strange in his heart. It is indeed very strange for plants to eat animals in turn. Not to mention pumpkins. The pumpkin monster not only eats giant scorpions, but also eats people. Roger said. The thick vines of the giant pumpkin quickly entangled two agents of the Baroque studio and stuffed them into their mouths. After chewing again, flesh and blood flew everywhere. Some of the remaining Baroque studio agents were terrified and fled quickly. The pumpkin monster chewed up the other three huge scorpions one after another, wrapped them in vines and squeezed them to death. Right now, the pumpkin monster had successfully killed the five huge scorpions as soon as it entered the battle. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 184. Roger commanded the giant pumpkin to continue its attack. The Drum Nation troops on the battlefield were greatly inspired by the power of Rog and the pumpkin beast. After the giant scorpion appeared at the beginning of the Baroque studio, it dealt a fatal blow to the Drum Nation troops in terms of attack power and psychology. The psychological failure was even more serious than in actual combat. Even with their emergency command, it was difficult for the Kangoo army to stabilize its position. But one thing falls one thing, I didn't expect Rog to use the more powerful pumpkin monster to have an amazing shocking power. Even Baroque Studios' gigantic scorpion pales in comparison. Although there was only one giant pumpkin, its aura made Roger and Ver overwhelm the Baroque Studio to some extent. We actually have the help of such a powerful monster. Too strong. This is a pumpkin. It pushes the enemy back. Everyone fights to the death. Those scorpions just look scary, but they are also afraid of shells and bullets. The troops of the Drum Kingdom regained their ground and began to fight back violently with cannons, machine guns, and various firearms. At the beginning, the scorpion troops of the Baroque studio, which had an advantage in terror, high mobility, and firepower, had to fall into a bitter battle. These huge scorpions actually don't have much defense against shells. Generally, their shells will be shattered when they are hit by a shell the size of a coconut. If it hits the head and vitals, it is also a one-hit kill. Of course, it still has strong resistance to bullets from machine guns and other firearms. Giant scorpions were killed one by one, and some were killed by cannonballs along with the Baroque studio agents on their backs. However, these giant scorpions are still more difficult to aim because of their high flexibility, so they give the officers and soldiers of the Sigo Kingdom a headache. At this time, Usopp also played a huge role. Usopp and Chopper, who were almost paralyzed by fright, recovered their morale and began to calm down after Rog's pumpkin monster appeared. "It's really amazing," Chopper said in surprise. Usopp raised his chin, thought for a while, and said, "Rog is really making rapid progress. He is able to achieve what he is today thanks to Captain Usopp's cultivation and guidance." Chopper turned back to look at him and asked in surprise, "Really?" Usopp said very proudly, "Of course, it is precisely because of Captain Usopp's teaching that Rog can use his abilities more powerfully." Chopper suddenly realized, so that's the case. But thanks to this kind of training, Rog was able to be so strong. He can help us boost our morale. But we can't stay here. Usopp's face suddenly became very serious. But these huge scorpions are still terrifying. I really don't want to fight them at close range, Chopper said. Why do you want to fight at close range? You just come with me. Usopp took Chopper away quickly. In the end, the two arrived on a small sand dune higher up on the position in the melee, where two soldiers from the Drum Kingdom happened to be manipulating a cannon. Usopp walked up to the two people and said, "Hey, now the sharpshooter Usopp is going to receive this cannon. I guarantee a perfect hit." The two soldiers looked at it and said nothing. Usopp quickly got behind the cannon and adjusted the cannon. "Chopper loaded the cannon," Usopp shouted. After hearing this, Chopper also reacted and said, "Yes." Chopper's body quickly changed shape, from the original scary little guy's shape to a very burly 3-meter-tall human shape. Under normal circumstances, Chopper's child-sized figure is in human beast form, which looks furry and short, very cute. After changing into this human form, the antlers that had been protruding from the hat retracted and disappeared. The whole body has become very tall and burly, and the face has changed from an animal style to a more human style. The chest and limbs are the first to reveal the strong muscles. "Wow, from a fox to a gorilla," the two drum soldiers said in surprise. "What? I'm neither a fox nor an orangutan, but a reindeer," Chopper said angrily. But there is no other time now. Chopper quickly picked up a shell the size of a coconut and loaded the cannon. Usopp aimed the cannon at the target, which was a huge scorpion moving at high speed. "It's about 100 meters away from here. You can move really fast, this is the only way you can go." Usopp grasped the position and pulled the cannon's drawstring. With a loud noise, a cannonball was fired. Finally, the giant scorpion that was moving at high speed was concentrated. The shell hit the giant scorpion's head, blowing up all kinds of tissues in its head. The huge explosion force knocked 4 Baroque Studio agents on its back. They are also thrown away. "It worked," Chopper and the two drum soldiers said happily. Chopper raised his thumb to Usopp and said, "That's a really accurate shot." Usopp had a serious expression but seemed to say nothing. Even for sports opponents, there are certain routes that can be judged. Only by judging their progress in advance can they hit the target, Usopp said very maturely. Usopp continued to use the cannon to aim again, and Chopper helped it load the cannonball. Next, one giant scorpion after another was hit. Usopp's godlike shooting ability has been fully utilized here. After the agents of Baroque Studio suffered a big loss, someone also noticed Usopp's location. 2 huge scorpions rushed towards the cannon on the small sand dune from the side and rear at irregular high-speed movements. "Usopp, it's not good, please take a look," Chopper suddenly shouted to Usopp. Usopp looked around and saw a huge scorpion rushing towards him on the left and right sides. "Oops, I kept paying attention to the distance, but I didn't expect these 2 giant scorpions to use the sand dunes and the wreckage of the wrecked carriage on the battlefield to rush over. Okay, I'll leave the one on the left to you, Chopper. I'll deal with the one on the right," Usopp said fearlessly in the face of danger. Chopper said with sweat on his face, "Okay." A huge scorpion rushed towards each side on the left and right sides. Usopp turned the cannon to the right. Just now, Chopper added an extra shell to the cannon, but if the cannon missed, the huge scorpion driven by the opponent would have rushed up the small sand dune before the next shot could be fired. The huge scorpion on the right rushed towards it with an astonishingly irregular route, making it impossible to predict. Usopp aligned his eyes with the barrel of the cannon. "Okay, it's up to you." Usopp stared at the approaching giant scorpion. The huge scorpion didn't stop attacking while it was marching, and the opponent even fired machine guns in this direction. The barrel of the cannon in front of Usopp was hit by a lot of bullets, creating a lot of sparks. One of them hit less than half a meter away from Usopp. "Go." At this moment, Usopp's eyes were facing straight forward, in the same direction as the cannon body, and the cannon's shells were also aimed at the head of the giant scorpion. The pull rope was pulled, and a cannonball was fired with a loud noise. The shell hit the giant scorpion's head hard. The huge force squeezed the scorpion's head flat, and there were continuous violent explosions. The huge scorpion was hit, and the 4 Baroque studio agents on the back were also affected by the explosion, and their flesh and blood were flying everywhere. "Okay," hit the soldiers from the Drum Kingdom who had been hiding beside Usopp, and the others shouted long live when they saw this. Usopp breathed a sigh of relief, and lay down on the ground of the small sand dune. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 185. After a close attack, Usopp successfully killed the huge scorpion on the right. Together with the Baroque studio agents above, they were also killed. On the left, Chopper had already rushed down the small sand dune to face the giant scorpion. Chopper waved his arms while charging hard, clenching his teeth inside. He is overcoming his inner fear. I must defeat it, Chopper said through gritted teeth. The Baroque studio agents on the back of the giant scorpion aimed their machine guns at Chopper. Accompanied by the sound of gunfire, a series of bullets shot at Chopper. The dense bullets came, and it was difficult for Chopper to parry. Take this. Chopper quickly took out a blue pill the size of a pigeon egg and swallowed it in one gulp. This is Chopper's special medicine, Rumble Ball. After taking the Rambo Ball, Chopper's body changed further. From the original burly human form to a huge fluffy plush ball. The agents of Baroque Studio who were controlling the giant scorpion were all shocked. Why the gorilla turned into a giant fur ball? The current Chopper looks like a giant hair ball, which is shocking. It surprised you. This is the effect of the Rambo Ball. Now I have become a fur-enhanced state, Chopper said confidently. The Baroque studio agents on the giant scorpion also continued to attack Chopper with machine guns. The dense bullets hit Chopper, who was like a giant furball, but the bullets were like hitting a sponge, causing no damage. The bullets that couldn't penetrate Chopper's now strong fur fell on the surrounding sand. Attack with cannon. Baroque studio agents on the back of a giant scorpion aimed their cannons at Chopper. There was a loud bang, and a shell fired at Chopper. Chopper's body was hit hard by the shell. The impact was really huge, and Chopper rolled backward like a giant hair ball. However, the shell did not kill Chopper but bounced to the sand beside him, and then exploded violently for a while. The explosion kicked up a huge plume of smoke and dust. Okay, let's kill him. The Baroque studio agents on the back of the giant scorpion cheered. But the smiles on their faces soon froze again. The giant hairball that Chopper turned into rolled away from the explosion site. After stopping, Chopper took a breath and said, "Rolling is really dizzying, but my reinforced fur cannot be damaged by this level of explosion." Even if he is attacked by 10 shells at the same time, Chopper's current fur will not be hurt. Seeing that Chopper was still unharmed, the agents of Baroque Studio on the back of the giant scorpion were also annoyed. Rush over and let the scorpions kill them with hand-to-hand combat. The agents of Baroque Studios drove the giant scorpion towards Chopper. The huge scorpion 10 meters long rushed to the front of Chopper quickly. The giant scorpion's 2 giant pincers came towards Chopper. At this critical moment, Chopper's body changed rapidly. Jump enhancement. Chopper's body's huge fluff shrank, and he returned to a strong and burly shape, but unlike his previous form, his legs became extremely strong. When the 2 giant pincers were about to clamp Chopper, Chopper jumped up. What? What a flexible move. It's not over yet. Chopper suddenly jumped to the left side of the giant scorpion. But immediately the terrifying tail of the giant scorpion stung me. Originally, this huge scorpion was 10 meters long and its tail was as thick as a wooden barrel. The spikes on the tail are as thick as a sharp sword. Out of the corner of Chopper's eye, he saw this terrifying weapon. 2 seconds before the giant scorpion's tail spike fell, Chopper quickly jumped away. The sand was pierced. Chopper landed 7 or 8 meters away. In addition to the long-range attacks of the cannons and machine guns of the Baroque studio agents on its back, the giant scorpion can also use its pincers and tail for close combat. Now Chopper relies on his jumping ability to avoid the opponent's attack even in close combat. The reason why this is possible is entirely due to Chopper's rumble ball. Originally, Chopper only had the transformation ability of animal form, human beast form, and human form, which are 3 common animal devil fruit ability users. However, Chopper developed the blue wave ball with his own medical knowledge, which can add 5 more deformations. So there are a total of 8 forms available. What kind of monster is this guy? Is he a devil fruit user? How can he have so many transformations? But he seems to be a reindeer. The Baroque studio agents on the back of the giant scorpion were all shocked. Chopper, who had become jump strengthened, now looked at the giant scorpion. He knew very well that although he was very strong now, but it doesn't come without a price. Blue Wave Ball is able to increase its transformation ability by disrupting the animal devil fruit's transformation wave band, but this effect only lasts for 3 minutes. Once 3 minutes have passed, it's a huge risk to use more blue balls. In addition to causing a huge load on the body, there are also more dangers. The battle must end within 3 minutes. Chopper quickly transformed again, this time his body rapidly became smaller. It is not much different from the normal human beast form. But at this time, Chopper's head became extremely useful. Let you have a taste of brain strengthening. Chopper put his front hooves together in front of his eyes. In this range of Namaste, Chopper looked at the huge scorpion and the agents of Baroque Studio on the back. As if scanning, Chopper could clearly see the functions of each part of the giant scorpion's body, as well as the weapons and functions of the various agents of the Baroque Studio on its back. Under such circumstances, Chopper's ability to analyze battles can even make even experienced human fighters feel ashamed. I see. Chopper stopped analyzing, and at the same time came up with a way to deal with the enemy. The huge scorpion started to rush towards Chopper again, and the surrounding sand rose up. Chopper's body began to deform again. Strengthening. Chopper lay down, his body quickly becoming very long and strong. It looks similar to a reindeer, but the whole body becomes stronger and the 2 antlers on the head become extremely huge. Now the 2 huge antlers on Chopper's head are as majestic as the 2 antlers of a mammoth. Any animal in the way, whether it is a lion, tiger, or rhinoceros or a hippopotamus, cannot resist his impact. Chopper ran quickly. The speed is unimaginable, even the fastest horses are dwarfed. The Baroque studio agents who were on the back of the giant scorpion looked at Chopper with some confusion and fear. What is he doing? Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 186. With all his strength, Chopper jumped up like a cheetah in a state of intensified wrestling, and finally landed heavily on the back of the giant scorpion. Under Chopper's huge impact, the 4 Baroque studio agents on the back of the giant scorpion were all knocked into the air. What? After a while of screams, the 4 Baroque studio agents rolled down the huge scorpion. But the gigantic scorpion continued to move. Chopper quickly transformed his body into another form. He stood up again, and the huge antlers shrunk again. Chopper's arms became extremely strong. Full of exaggerated muscles, like a strong man. Give you a final blow. Chopper put the front hooves of his 2 strong arms together. Chopper's 2 iron-like front hooves were aimed at the giant scorpion's head. Carved hoof cherry. Chopper's 2 iron hooves hit the giant scorpion's head like a cannon. This blow is powerful, although it has no explosive damage. But the force hit a point between the 2 iron hooves, and the force penetrated the giant scorpion's head completely. The giant scorpion let out a harsh cry, and its huge body fell heavily to the ground. Tissue from his brain spurted out of his mouth. Chopper stood on the head of the giant scorpion with sweat on his face. The time now has just reached 3 minutes, which is the time he can bear. When the time was up, Chopper's body quickly changed back to the human beast form. Looking at the huge scorpion corpse under his feet, Chopper was a little at a loss. At this time, Usopp's voice suddenly sounded. "Well done, Chopper." Usopp and the two drum soldiers rushed over. Usopp and two soldiers rushed in front of the huge scorpion's body, looking at the behemoth killed by Chopper. Usopp gave Chopper a thumbs up and praised, "Well done, you really deserve to be Chopper. You are so powerful, you can actually kill such a huge scorpion in hand-to-hand combat. You are my idol and I want to be as strong as you." The two magnetic drum soldiers also said adoringly. After hearing these compliments, Chopper touched his head with his hand and said with some embarrassment, "Am I that powerful?" In the battle just now, Chopper perfectly played the power of the blue wave ball. The 5 normal forms of jump enhancement, fur enhancement, brain enhancement, wrestling enhancement, and wrist strength enhancement were used. During the 3-minute safety period, Chopper can use these forms freely. In battle, the seemingly small Chopper can display extremely powerful hand-to-hand combat capabilities. Chopper and Usopp successfully defeated 2 giant scorpions that were sneaking up on them, and then they joined up with more drum army troops. Under the cover of these drum army troops, Usopp used cannons to bombard them better. Giant scorpions. Because Rog controlled the giant pumpkin and changed the situation on the battlefield. The side keeps turning the situation around. In addition to Usopp and Chopper fighting hard, Sauron and Luffy fought bravely. Sauron wielded his blade on the battlefield like a god of death to harvest the lives of Baroque Studio agents and giant scorpions. A huge scorpion oxygenated dust, and the machine guns and cannons on its back fired violently forward. Sauron is ahead. Open fire and kill him quickly. Baroque Studio agents on the back of a giant scorpion shoot violently. But what surprised them was that Sauron was like a phantom, very flexible and even exaggerated dodge. In fact, Sauron wasn't able to dodge bullets quickly, but he dodged in advance based on that amazing observation ability and intuition for murderous aura. However, as he approached, the range in which Sauron could evade became smaller. "Haha, you're so close and you can't hide away. Take a shot from me." A Baroque workshop agent manning the cannon fires a shell. Zoro ahead was only less than 20 meters away. But when the shell was about to hit Sauron's body, the 2 samurai swords in Sauron's hand crossed and cut open. The cannonball turned into 4 halves in front of the Baroque Studios agent's line of sight, and then scattered around and exploded. How can it be? While the agents of the Baroque Studio were surprised, Sauron's figure had jumped above them. 4 lights and shadows flickered, Sauron stood on the back of the giant scorpion, blood flew from the necks of the 4 Baroque Studio agents, and the 4 fell down. 4 enemies were killed, but the giant scorpion still stabbed its tail towards Sauron. The ghost in Sauron's right hand slashed upwards, and the barrel-like thick scorpion tail was severed. Sauron looked at the giant scorpion's head again. Guiche and Suezu stabbed twice in their hands, the brain of this huge scorpion was pierced, and finally struggled a few times before lying on the desert. Killing bugs is so boring. After Sauron left a word, he jumped away again and continued to fight on the battlefield. This time, 2 giant scorpions rushed over. Zoro quickly ran over from the left. The cannons and machine guns on the backs of the 2 huge scorpions fired continuously. This time the opponent's firepower was relatively intensive, and Sauron took advantage of some obstacles on the battlefield. Finally, when he was less than 30 meters away from the 2 giant scorpions, Zoro suddenly gathered the strength of the 2 samurai swords and crossed them forward to kill them. Eagle Wave. The huge sword energy flew over like 2 blue eagles. The Baroque Studio agents on the backs of the 2 giant scorpions each received a sword aura. After they were knocked down, 2 huge scorpions rushed towards Sauron by instinct. Sauron ran and jumped over for a while, using a small sand dune to jump to a height of more than 10 meters. The two huge scorpions also stabbed them with their huge scorpion tails. The spikes of the two scorpion tails are like two sharp swords. Sauron swung the samurai swords in both hands very quickly, and the light and shadow flashed at the half of the tails of the two huge scorpions, accompanied by the sound of the hard shell being cut, and finally disconnected. Sauron fell to the ground. Although the two huge scorpions lost their huge tails, they attacked Sauron with their huge pincers that could crush a horse. I don't like dismembering bugs. Sauron rushed over again, first to the left and then to the right, chopping off a total of 4 pincers of the two giant scorpions. The giant scorpions without weapons were also frightened and started to retreat, and Sauron ignored them. Subsequently, the two giant scorpions that lost their combat capabilities were killed by the drum forces with cannons and machine guns. I really don't like killing bugs, but since there are so many soldiers, they are relatively stronger. At least there are some masters to hold the battle, Sauron muttered to himself and continued fighting. Luffy is very happy on the battlefield. This fun-loving boy uses his rubber powers to engage in various battles with his enemies. Wow, that's so fun. Luffy started dealing with a giant scorpion. The Baroque studio agents behind the giant scorpion aimed their cannons at Luffy. Fire! A shell was fired from the cannon, hitting Luffy. Luffy's entire body was dented in the back by the cannonball. Luffy finally bounces the cannonball back in the direction of the giant scorpion. What? The Baroque Studios agents were shocked. The artillery shell then hit the giant scorpion, and the huge explosion set off strong smoke and dust.